So next up, we've got Ilya Volodarsky, co-founder of Segment. Segment's an amazing company that helps developers like me organize their data. They've just released a startup program in the last 3 months, and he'll be up to talk about that, plus all the amazing things you can do with data. So if you could keep that excitement, get your woos up, make him feel like a rock star. Welcome Ilya to the stage.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me? Yeah. All right, awesome. So I'm Ilya Volodarsky. I'm one of the co-founders of Segment, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the mistakes of my past and my co-founders' past, and how we didn't use analytics from day one and then lived to regret it. And so the basic idea will be I'll take you through a crash course of how to install analytics the right way, specifically for early stage startups. Cool. And for those of you that don't know what Segment is an analytics platform that helps you instrument your analytics from your website or your mobile apps and then connect it to the places where you want to send it, like Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Intercom, Amplitude, and tools like that. All right, cool. Let's get started. OK, so the reason why this talk exists is to avoid what's on the screen right now. So CB Insights is a research firm, and they did an analysis of 101 different startup postmortems, and they categorized each one into different categories. The first category is no market need, which means the startup actually failed to build something that the market wants. This is not finding product market fit. The second one is ran out of cash, which is a symptom of spending too much time trying to find product market fit. So my co-founders and I experienced this for about 2 years, and this is why this talk exists. So this is Peter, the CEO of Segment, myself in the back left, Ian and Calvin. And this is us getting into Y Combinator, the accelerator in Mountain View, California, in the summer of 2011. So one of the early batches where we still had Paul Graham and Robert Morris and those folks. And what we were working on is an educational tool called Classmetric. And the way Classmetric worked is it was a cardiogram for class confusion. So when I'm talking to you today, if you guys are confused about what I'm saying, you would have a laptop in front of you. You could say, I am confused, or I understand. And then the professor would be able to get kind of this cardiogram while the class proceeds. The students could also ask questions, and so the TAs can answer them in real time. And so we built this in the summer of 2011 during YC, and we rolled it out in Berkeley, MIT, and a lot of different summer classes. And unfortunately, this is what we saw. So this is a picture actually taken 5 minutes from the back of the class. Imagine that there was 300 students in, let's say, a biology class. The professor says, everyone take out your laptop. Where before, only 20% of the students would have their laptops out. Now 100% of them do. Within 5 minutes, 100% of the students are on Facebook or eBay or Amazon. It was a pretty tough moment. And so once we saw this repeat itself over and over again, we realized we're not actually helping these students. And so we decided to actually pivot about 6 months into the project. We'd unfortunately already raised the seed round, and so we had to email our investors and tell them we're switching from this educational product to another product we're thinking about, which was an analytics product. And 30% of them, or 30% of the money we raised, we actually had to give back to our investors. And so this is the next product we built. We were trying to understand how segments of users were operating differently within the system. So maybe one segment would use notes only, one segment would use the confusion meter only. How did those two segments differ in terms of engagement and retention? And so we built one product, and over the course of the next 2 years, we built 5 more. And so we built an engagement product, a retention product, 2 funnel products, and then an automatic insights product, all in the analytics domain. And the only thing that's common across all of them was that we didn't do product market fit correctly. We chased feature after feature. We didn't have the right customer group. We didn't run a private beta correctly. And we spent way too little time actually talking to customers. And we never actually launched these to a wider audience. We just worked with a small group of customers. And so all of this culminated in December 2012. We're almost running out of money in our bank account. We're walking around the cul-de-sac with Paul Graham from Y Combinator. And at the end of the time, 20 minutes, he looks at us and says, so you've burned $500,000 and you have nothing to show for it. It was one of the lowest moments in my life. Funny now, though. So what we ended up coming back home, and that week we did the first thing correct. We were sitting on this library, open source library called Analytics.js that we wrote. It was 2 API calls. Who is the user and what are they doing? And then once you implement those 2 API calls, you can easily plug in Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Amplitude, and about 12 other providers. And then all the analytics would be instrumented magically in the background. So instead of spending months coding this before talking to customers, what we did was we launched it on Hacker News. And immediately, I went to the top of Hacker News. There's all of these people on Twitter talking about it. We started reading the comments, and people were saying, I wish I had this at work, which is the first time we actually experienced that kind of comment. And immediately afterwards, we started getting emails asking, how can we get access to this product? And we started feeling the market pulling us instead of us pushing at the market. So riding that incredible high, the first high that we felt in 2.5 years, we ended up in the first 2 weeks building kind of the base of what Segment is today, which is an analytics switchboard service that once you send who the user is, what they're doing via one API, you can just flick a switch, and all of a sudden all your data is in Google Analytics. All of a sudden it's in Mixpanel. And so once you do find a product with product market fit, you can ride that wave. And so today, Segment has 19,000 customers across 70 different countries. And so the reason why this talk exists is to explain what we did wrong and why analytics could have saved us from that experience. So the first reason why analytics is incredibly important is it helps you test product market fit. When a founder sees a problem in the world and comes up with a solution, they get obsessed over it, right? And there's this reality distortion field that is created where they think that this is how the world must work. But clearly, 40% of the time, that's not how the world works, right? Maybe they got the problem wrong or they got the solution wrong. And so analytics helps you be real with yourself. Do customers actually want this? Are they coming back week over week? We'll talk about how to do that. The second reason is once you actually do find product market fit, where do you actually focus your team? Do you focus on acquisition, on engagement, on retention? You need to have analytics set up in order to focus in the right place. And the third reason is to operate your company using data. So there's one model of the world where you have your engineering team or your founders work against projects. Let's build this, let's build this. There's another one where you pick a metric like not enough people are coming to my website, or people are leaving the website or a product 4 weeks after they get started using with the product. Those are real business problems, and you should run against those instead of against projects. Projects are just a means of changing business metrics. OK, so today we're going to cover a few things. We'll cover basics, which is your first funnel, how to collect data, and the top 3 metrics. Then we'll talk about the startup stack, which is what tools are in the market today that you should use. So our recommendations from seeing hundreds of these. Then we'll talk about how stacks evolve. This is my favorite section. So in the Segment database, we actually have 5 years of data, or 6 years of data, of how people change tools over time. And so we'll find some patterns, and then we'll predict your future. And then I'll leave you with what to do tonight, kind of a 20-minute guide on how to get started with analytics. All right, so the first thing you always do in analytics is to think about your funnel. A funnel is a consecutive series of steps that users do in order to get value from your product. And we'll use Netflix as an example here. Every B2B product and B2C product can be represented with this type of funnel. There's acquisition, then there's engagement, and then there's monetization. And when engagement happens in a loop, that's known as retention. And that's what is the definition of product market fit. So on top of the performance of this funnel, you can add metrics. So the first acquisition metric is how many net new users are coming this week versus last week. The engagement metric is out of a static cohort of users that sign up from Sunday to Monday, what percentage of those are still engaged in my product in week 1, and week 2, and week 3, and week 4, and optimizing week 4. And then monetization is how much net new revenue did I make this week versus last week. OK, so if you answer these 3 questions and you have metrics on top of them, and then you drive them up week over week, then you're going to have a successful company. It's as simple as that. OK, and then you add custom events to your funnel that represent your business. A B2B business will function a little different than a B2C trial business, will function different than an e-commerce business, and so forth. So in Netflix, users sign up, then they watch a bunch of videos, then their trial expires, and they upgrade their subscription, right? And so those are the custom events that represent the funnel in this case. OK, so now that we have the funnel with us, we're going to collect some data. So this is a screenshot of how to instrument your web app or your mobile app with Segment's tracking API. So you take those funnel events, you say, user 123 did user sign up, then video played, then subscription. You also need event properties. So if you imagine you're holding a video played event in your hands, what are the next questions you're going to ask? What video is being played? What category is it? Maybe what's the duration of the video? How long did the user get through the video, right? You put all of those in the event property. There's one event property that's incredibly important, which is the MRR. So that's your monthly recurring revenue, or if you're a commerce business, it could be value of this cart that was just purchased. OK, once the data is flowing from your mobile or web app, what you need to do is QA it, do quality assurance. So is the data in the right format? We have a debugger. You look at the data. You realize it's good. You move on. And the next thing you do is add your first analytics tool. Amplitude is our favorite analytics tool at the moment. So you can add it to your stack. And then immediately you start seeing those user signups events going from your mobile app or your website directly into Amplitude. And that's it. It's about 20 minutes. And then you're ready to start building your metrics. That's how simple it is. OK, so let's focus on the top 3 metrics. A lot of founders make the mistake of trying to model their entire business. The main thing to do is to model the top 3 metrics first. And if you're working and improving those, then it doesn't really matter what's underneath those. OK, so the first one is signups per week, net new signups week over week. And what we can do is we can cut it by different event properties. So a B2B business will have it will have invited users, it will have organic users, and other types of invites. So you can cut it by an event property, and then look at how much organic users you're getting every single week. The way you do this is you go into Amplitude, you create an event segmentation report, you add the user sign-up event, you press next, and then here you go. And so if we look at the organic user signups, we see it's about, I guess, 200. And so a marketing goal for this month could be increasing that user sign up to 300. And your marketing team might have 3 ideas of how to do that. And so every day the marketing team comes in and they look at a TV dashboard that has this graph. And they're working on their projects, they're writing blog posts, they're going to conferences, and they're watching this number. OK, second metric is retention cohorts. This is the most important one. It's the product market fit metric. And although it might seem a little scary at first, it's actually not scary at all. So the way you look at it is weekly users signing up in a cohort. So on December 10th through December 17th, 16 users signed up. And 18% of those users in their first week, let's say, watched the video. But by the week 4, only 6.25% of them are watching videos. So this is your product market fit number, and this is the one you want to be increasing over time. And as you improve your product, you can see that different cohorts of users will experience a new product, and so you can drive change through new cohorts. OK, so what metric do you actually pick as your engagement metric? So the question is, what value does the user get? So for Airbnb, the value I get is I can go travel and I could stay at rental properties, right? And so the way that they think about it is how many bookings did I do annually? If I don't do any bookings in a year, then they think I churned. Facebook wants to sell you ad impressions, so they want you to come daily or monthly to their newsfeed. OK, now that you have your engagement metric, how do you actually read this graph? So whenever a cohort signs up in week 1, some percentage of your users will use the product, right? You can always convince your friends or your mom or a group of people to use your product, but you can't convince them to come back week over week and continue using it. People will never do that unless they're actually getting value, right? And so this is the metric that destroys the founder's reality distortion field. If by week 19, none of your customers from that cohort are still using your product, then you don't have product market fit. And if you ended up being at some kind of natural plateau that's a higher percentage, it depends per business, but let's say 20%, 30%, let's say for a B2B business, then you're in a pretty good place. OK, luckily, Amplitude makes retention cohorts incredibly easy to calculate. Users enter with the user sign-up event, and then they engage with the video played event. And then you press next, and then out comes your retention cohort. And then you could set goals on the 4-week or the 8-week retention, depending on your business and how long you expect customers to be using your product. OK, next, probably the most important one is revenue. So how much net new revenue am I getting week over week? Again, super simple to calculate. Event segmentation report, subscription upgraded event. Use the property sum over your revenue metric. So that could be MRR or value if you're an e-commerce company. And out comes your revenue graph, and your investors will obviously be very interested in the growth rate of this graph. When you're starting out, if you're a commerce company, you sell to consumers, you generally want to do either week over week or month over month goals. But if you're a B2B company where it takes 3 months to actually do a sales cycle, you probably want to be doing quarterly goals. So it completely depends on your sales cycle. OK, so once you have those metrics, make sure to drop them onto a dashboard. This is super important. You basically want to have a TV in your room where every day your co-founders are looking at this TV and your teammates are looking at this TV. If people are not looking at the dashboard, then it doesn't have product market fit. Dashboards work like products. And we build lots of dashboards that don't have product market fit. OK, you also want to be sending your investors updates over what's actually happening in your business. So pick maybe the top 3 metrics, acquisition, engagement, monetization, and show them the week over week change. This drives accountability between the co-founder and the advisor or the investor, and lets them introduce people like marketing advisors at the right time. OK, cool. I'm going to speed up a little bit. There's basically 5 minutes left and about 15 minutes of content, so we'll be going a little bit faster. OK, so next, we're going to be talking about what tools you need at what different stage, and I want to leave you with the recommendation. So over different stages of your company, you'll use different tools. So when you're building an MVP, what you want to do is put Google Analytics, Web Analytics on the page, so you can see where people are coming from, and you want to have amplitude to figure out what features are people using. As the company goes into private beta, you start having customers using the tool. Make sure you have live chat because customers will find bugs in your product and you want to get that information as quickly as possible. Then you want to have a data warehouse so that you can democratize data access within the company. And then you want to build dashboards on top of the data warehouse. The rest is kind of self-explanatory: email tool, help desk tool, eventually CRM tool. OK, so a few recipes for you. 1, if you have a technical co-founder that knows how to query a Postgres database, and then the CEO wants to ask a question, how many users do we actually have? They always have to go to the CTO, right? So how do you democratize data across your teammates, across your co-founders? You get a data warehouse, like BigQuery, and then you get something like Mode, which is a business intelligence tool where you can write SQL queries. So this is a SQL query that calculates the most popular Segment integrations, and anyone at Segment can write the SQL query, not only the technical co-founders, right? OK. Next, this one didn't exist in 2011, but it's actually my favorite recipe. So every product will have about 3 months of bad usability problems when it first gets launched. And so you want to install FullStory. FullStory will record web sessions as people use them, and then will actually let you see where there's usability problems. So this customer, you can see it in a second. We're trying to figure out where our metrics are so bad for this product. It turns out he's incredibly confused and ends up just exiting the flow, right? So we can fix that problem. OK, and the next recipe is the 43-minute founder email. The 43-minute founder email is the connection between the co-founder and the newly signed up user. So the user signs up, you wait like 36 minutes, 42 minutes, whatever, just so it doesn't look like you wrote it immediately. And then you send them this email saying, hey, I'm the co-founder. Thanks for signing up for my website or my product. Please send me an email if you have any questions whatsoever. We've had this since 2011, and we've gotten more than 50,000 responses on top of this email. Incredibly useful. OK, and so this is the startup stack. These are my recommendations to you today. First, you want to have Google Analytics and Amplitude for product analytics, BigQuery, and I can tell you a little bit afterwards why BigQuery is the best, Mode for business intelligence on top of the data warehouse. Next, if you want to look at all your users, you'll use Intercom for that. Then for experience analytics, what's happening on my website, FullStory is great for that. And finally, for email, you want to use Customer.io. And obviously, Facebook and Google for paid acquisition. Cool. And then Segment will help you switch between these tools as better ones come out. OK. I will skip this section because I don't have time. Oh, no, we got to do it. We're just going to do it. Let's do it. All right. All right. So this is a graph that shows how stacks evolve. I'll probably get thrown off the stage here then. So the way you read this graph is 575 days in. This customer turned on heap gauges, Mixpanel, Outbound, these tools. And they gave them all a bake-off, and at the end they decided the Mixpanel was the best, and they kept using that one for the rest of time, right? So this tells us that you can use different tools, try different tools, and eventually pick the best one. OK, this customer is the throw-it-all-away customer. Had a stack for about 2 years, and then decided that a completely new stack was needed. And so what this tells us is best-in-class tools will change every 2 years. Then this is the GDPR freakout. So GDPR came out. This person turned off all their paid acquisition tools. This tells us that privacy regulations will come out across the world. You need to change your stack for that. And then we hired someone, maybe my favorite one. 3 tools, and then the head of data comes in and then gets all these tools. OK, so getting started today. You want to make a plan. What data am I going to track via the funnel? Then you want to track the data using Segment. You want to pick your tools like Amplitude. You want to build your top 3 metrics. And then you want to distribute them to your investors and your advisors. OK, so my co-founders and I thought about 2011 when we were getting started and what tools we're actually using. And it turns out we were super frugal. We only spent about $250 a month on software, and that was only GitHub and our SSL certificate, right? The crucial stuff. So how do you pay for all of these different tools in an early stage startup? So about 13 weeks ago, we launched our startup program. And so I'm super excited to tell you, for Startup Grind folks, if your company is less than 2 years of age and has raised less than $5 million or 4 million pounds, then Segment is free. So via the new startup program. So go ahead and take advantage of that. And here, take a picture of this link. This is the link you should use to get the special credit. Cool. I'll wait until the flashes go off. OK. And best of all, we negotiate deals for you guys with all of these different vendors. So we have a year free of customer I/O. We have a year free of Mode, right? And so we basically have leverage in this ecosystem, and we get you guys deals. So if you're in the startup program, you can get the stack almost for free, which is great. All right, and thank you.